Welcome back to a new vlog. My name is Henry Singleton. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that watched the first one. I had loads of really positive feedback, so thank you if you did watch that. And if you remember, at the end of the last vlog, I prayed for 3 points, and I'm delighted to say the footballing gods were listening, and Ipswich Town beat Leeds United on Saturday by 1-0. It wasn't particularly pretty, but we got the job done, and that's of course the main thing. Mick McCarthy described the game after. He said, as we've heard so many times this season and throughout his tenure in charge at Portman Road, we had to scrap it out, which is exactly what we did. And the game completely changed with the red card to Union O'Kane on 37 minutes. Before then, it was kind of very cagey, quite close. Neither team having much of kind of quality going forward. No real clear-cut chances. I think Leeds began to have the better of it from about 20 minutes when they did kind of threaten a little bit. And then, as I say, on 37 minutes, the game completely changed when Union O'Kane and Jonas Knudsen had a kind of a scuffle. But it started off with actually Callum Connolly. He was trying to shepherd the ball out for a goal kick, and he was in a tussle with Union O'Kane. They kind of fell on the floor, had a bit of a tangle, got up, and then Knudsen got involved and kind of squared. O'Kane and Knudsen squared up to each other, and you look back now, you can see it's a clear, I wouldn't say headbutt, but it's definitely a movement of the head from O'Kane towards Knudsen's face. And we all know that by the letter of the law, if you do that, and if you put your hands near someone's face or you put your head towards someone's face, then it's going to be a straight red card. And the referee couldn't have been in a better position, to be honest. It was pretty stupid from O'Kane, and the referee wasted no time in producing the red card, much to the delight of the Ipswich Town fans. And then kind of from that moment on 37 minutes, we had the better of the rest of the first half. Bersen Trina had a really good effort where he just struck the inside of the post from distance. And then at half time, I was feeling fairly optimistic, kind of thinking, right, let's crack on here, let's make our one-man advantage count. And then as the further the second half went, and I know this is a kind of typical thing of football, the longer and longer and longer the game goes on, where you've got 11 against 10, the more you're kind of starting to worry, because the opposition start to pack more and more men behind the ball, and it makes it very hard to break down. And still, whilst we were going forward more in that second half and the fullbacks started overlapping, we weren't really creating any kind of clear-cut opportunities. And it did feel like it was going to be one of those days where either a bad mistake or a moment of magic was going to win it. And it was the latter. Bersen Trina, we've seen him do it a few times this season. I think he scored a very similar goal away at QPR. He picked the ball up on the left-hand side from Miles Kenlock, drifted inside, went past a couple of players and rifled in a shot into the top corner from about, 25, 30 yards. And it was a fantastic effort, wasn't it? It actually won goal of the day, I think, on Sky Sports News, which is decent, because that's a competition throughout the whole of the English football system. So yeah, fantastic goal. We know he's got that in his locker, as I say. He does kind of frustrate, and he's not a typical Mick McCarthy player, is he? But on his day, he can produce something like that. And as Mick said, it's a God-given talent that he's got. You can't teach that. You can't coach that. But apparently he does work very hard on the training pitch as well, so he probably practices that a lot. So yeah, pleased for him that he managed to do that. And then after the goal, we still didn't kind of press on and get the second. We didn't really look like getting the second, I wouldn't say. And you worry with Ipswich Town. I'm sure other fans of other clubs have the same worries, but I do feel like with Ipswich, I've seen it so many times where we have that kind of slender 1-goal lead. And even against 10 men, you were kind of still worried that there'd be that late equaliser. We saw a sickening one against Sheffield Wednesday earlier on in the season where we were 2-1 up, and Big New, who equalised for them, were right at the end. So I could see it happening again, but luckily it didn't, and it nearly did though, didn't it? With Cooper, he had a chance kind of 10 minutes before the end from very close range that he somehow managed to hook over the bar. I'm not quite sure how. But anyway, we did hang on, we got the victory, and we did scrap it out, as Mick McCarthy said. So that's very good news. And it's kind of a weird one, because obviously the last vlog was pretty negative, and then we win and it kind of papers over cracks because we didn't play particularly well, as I say. It wasn't a case of passing them off the pitch. And I would have been very interested to have seen how the game would have gone if it had stayed 11v11, because as I say, Leeds did start to come into it. But we'll never know that, and great to get the win, and we're now 4 points off the playoffs again. It's a strange season where we kind of win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and we're not consistent, and just when you think you're completely slipping out of it, you kind of become in touching distance again, and yeah, I don't think ultimately we will end up in the playoffs, but at least it makes it a bit more exciting when you have a kind of chance of getting there. So that's that. The other thing I want to talk about on Saturday is the atmosphere, which was fantastic. Slightly sad that it takes kind of external factors for the atmosphere to get ramped up. What with the Leeds fans, they bought 3,500. They took the whole of the upper Cobbold, basically, apart from the very small D section in the middle, which looked quite strange, didn't it? Kind of a very small pocket of Ipswich fans surrounded by a mass of Leeds fans. And that made for a really good atmosphere. I've always thought that it'd be much better to have the away fans, that's this side of the Cobbold fan stand next to the North stand, because it kind of creates that back and forth atmosphere between the home and away fans. And I think it has been put to the club before, like, why can't that happen? It would make a big difference to the atmosphere, and I think they've always said it's for security reasons. I don't really see what they are particularly. But there we are. I don't know what the issue is with that. But anyway, that made for a very good atmosphere. Leeds always take good numbers and they always make a lot of noise. So credit to them. It's not exactly round the corner from Leeds. So that made a big difference. And the other thing was the Fortuna Düsseldorf fans who kind of Ipswich Town. For those of you who don't know, Ipswich Town and Fortuna Düsseldorf in Germany, a club over there also in the second tier of German football. So same equivalent to Ipswich. They kind of have a link with Ipswich and they come over for a pilgrimage a couple of times a year, and this was one of the games that they came over for, and they really helped to create a decent atmosphere as well. They were packed in section 6 of the North stand, so right next to the Leeds fans, and yeah, that made for a good atmosphere. As I said at the beginning, talking about this atmosphere thing, it is a shame that it has to take other things to make the atmosphere good, because I think definitely in the time that I've been watching Ipswich, which is, I think I went to my first game in 2002, I remember how good the atmosphere was then. You used to turn up as a little kid and it was so exciting and made lots of noise and all this kind of thing, and it's just steadily declined and got worse and worse and worse, alongside kind of attendances which have also got obviously a lot less. And there's been a couple of games this year, I remember the QPR game on Boxing Day, which was just so dead, and obviously the football wasn't great, it was 0-0, but still you kind of, it's that old thing of, do the fans have to get the players going or do the players have to get the fans going, and obviously it does work both ways, but the atmosphere has generally got a lot worse, so you don't really get excited going to Portman Road like you used to. I don't know whether that's a thing of just getting older, I don't think it is, I think it's an atmosphere thing. So it was really good to have a really enjoyable atmosphere on Saturday, so I'm pleased about that. Obviously there were some kind of disorder from a minority of Leeds fans, I think, that were apparently ripping up seats, and there was like a flash bang, wasn't there? One of those things, a bit like a flare that went off. But I think people definitely overhype these things when they happen. It was clearly a minority of fans. I think the vast majority of fans were there for a good crack, good day out, a few beers, and making a lot of noise. So I think to get too carried away with that is probably not wise. I think where the safety concern did come on Saturday was the fact that obviously, so the upper tier of the Cobbold stand was all Leeds fans, and then the lower tier was still Ipswich mostly. So that was the danger, I guess. There was the other thing thrown, I think, which could get thrown towards the Ipswich fans down below. So that's obviously not great. So that's that. I will just say the reason that Leeds had such a big following, and they were allowed to bring so many in the Cobbold stand, is to avoid this kind of all-ticket situation that we've had at Portman Road before, which, to be honest, is a bit of a disaster. So basically, when we've played the kind of big clubs or clubs that are seen as being potentially slightly violent or whatever, the club makes it an all-ticket match where you can only buy your ticket before the day. So you can't turn up on the turnstiles and buy a ticket. And the reason they do that is so that Leeds fans don't get into the home end when they're given a small attendance, and then they don't go into the home end and start buying tickets, and then the problems that obviously causes. But how that worked out in the past was that Ipswich fans were then turning up on the gate, not looking on Twitter or whatever to see, you know, if it was all ticket, and then turning up on the gate to go to the game, and they always said, nope, you can't come in, which is just ridiculous. So probably good that they've done away with that all ticket thing, because it was a bit of a disaster. So that's the Leeds game done. Really good 3 points, despite the fact we didn't play overly well. But we go again on Saturday against Bolton Wanderers, and we'll be turning up there with a bit of confidence. And I think it's a really good chance against lowly opposition to get 3 points and try and build a bit of momentum and get a bit of consistency going. Because as I say, 4 points off the playoffs. It's not a million miles away, but we need to start winning games back to back if we're going to start really pushing on. We shall see. I'm not making a trip to Bolton on Saturday. That is a hell of a long way to go. I am going to Sunderland away in a couple of weeks. That'll be a good crack. But I'm not going to Bolton. So respect to any Ipswich fans that are going up there, I must say. So the other thing I want to talk about, a couple of other things. The FA Youth Cup, which took place last night, and Ipswich Town beat Dagenham and Redbridge by 2-1. A couple of goals from Jack Lancaster, I believe. I watched little bits because it was actually streamed live on Facebook by the club, which was good. And yeah, it looked decent, and definitely the under-18s showing the senior team how you win an FA Cup game. So we're now into the 5th round of that competition, and we've got a home tie against Blackpool. And Blackpool actually beat Southampton last night, which was quite surprising. I know Southampton are always kind of famed for their academy, but Blackpool are the team we'll face next in the 5th round. And I'm quite keen to get to that. I'm not sure exactly when it is, but yeah, it's good. It's good, kind of promising times for the academy if they can get through the next game against Blackpool at home, which I think you'd fancy Ipswich in that one. And obviously we've beaten Everton so far in the 3rd round, which was a shock at Goodison Park, and then we beat Dagenham last night. So this sets up the 5th round tie, and I'll be looking forward to that one. I'll talk about transfers. I think generally since I last did the vlog last week, things have quietened down a bit actually. There were various kind of conspiracies about Bart, the fact that he was left out in the game against Leeds on Saturday. Well, he wasn't left out. I think he was ill or injured or one of the two. I think he was ill, and of course that got people talking, saying, he's not ill, he's not injured, he's off to Crystal Palace. Well, I don't think that is the case. I think they are close to signing this Getafe. It's like Bart will be staying put. No more news on Tommy Smith. He was also not playing, so on Saturday, so whether that was, he was again, I think, injured supposedly, whether there's anything in that. And yeah, I think definitely, as I said in the last one, I think Ipswich would have to get in a replacement at centre-back for him if he was to be let go. I think there's been talk of Connor Goldson, who we've been in for before from Brighton, so I think we would definitely have to get another one in with only one recognised centre-back in the team at the moment. We have signed a centre-back actually, but he's not really for first team use at the moment. He's a young lad, I think he might be 19 or so. He's a French centre-back. He's called Chris Goteni. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. And we've signed him from a team in the French 5th division, which is pretty obscure. Even my FIFA and Football Manager knowledge does not stretch as far as the 5th tier of French football, so I have absolutely no idea about him. I know that Mick McCarthy said the other day that he played in a match for the 23s, I think, and he was awful. So that's good to hear, obviously. But apparently he has impressed in training and on trial, so I think he's one for a bit of development, and he's been signed to the end of the season, I think, with an option to extend that. In terms of incomings, as well as him, there's been some chat about Guardiola from Middlesbrough. Obviously, I think on a loan, he's a decent midfield player. He's played a number of games at Championship level, and I think it's just a case of trying to get a body in, considering the amount of injuries we have in the midfield area. So there's been some chat about that. I don't think it's by any means concrete, but we shall see what happens on that one. So that's that. I wanted to mention as well last week, which I completely forgot, the very sad passing of Ipswich legend Ted Phillips. He was someone that I think in the kind of 60s era when we won the league in 62. He had a really prolific strike partnership with Ray Crawford, and they banged in loads of goals. And he's an Ipswich legend, and I was glad to see his life commemorated at Portman Road on Saturday. So that was good to see. But sad news that he has passed. But yeah, thank you for watching again. Please do continue to watch and subscribe and like this channel and all those other things. I'll put all my kind of social media things below the YouTube channel here. And we go to Bolton, as I say, on Saturday, the long trip up there, and we will be hoping for 3 points. I'm going to be positive and go for a 2-1 Ipswich win. I think we should be beating them, really, shouldn't we? They lost last time out against Brentford 2-0, so hopefully we'll be winning that one. And just a question to put out to you guys. Obviously, as I said, it's kind of win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and it's very inconsistent, and we have no idea where we're going to finish. So where do you guys think we're going to finish at the end of the season? Are we going to slip into ultimately into kind of mid-table obscurity, or are we going to have a really good, decent push in the second half of the season and get into those playoffs? So I'll be interested to hear your views on that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.